Every serious gardener knows that worms are the backbone of a living soil. They aerate, break down organic matter, and leave behind castings richer than any store-bought fertilizer. For years, many of us have been told that to improve our soil, we need to buy composting worms, especially red wigglers or African nightcrawlers. But I stopped buying worms the day I discovered a far more powerful, natural, and sustainable method that invites them to come, multiply, and work for free. It not only saved me money, but completely transformed my soil structure within a single growing season. And today, I'm sharing exactly how it works, so you can do the same. Worms don't need to be bought. They need to be invited. Here's the truth. Worms already exist in your ecosystem. They're just waiting for the right conditions to thrive. When the soil is dry, compacted, acidic, or deprived of organic matter, they disappear or go dormant. When the soil becomes rich in carbon, moist and protected, they flood in naturally. So instead of spending money importing worms that often die or escape because conditions aren't right, it's far better to build a worm haven right in your own garden. This discovery came after I noticed that the areas under my old compost piles, grass clippings and rotting mulch were always teeming with worms, far more than the beds where I had released purchased worms. That's when I realized that worms don't follow the source. They follow the food, the moisture, and the shelter. If you can create those three elements in the soil, they'll come on their own, breed, and stay indefinitely. The secret is feeding the soil from above, not digging from below. The biggest mistake gardeners make is disturbing their soil too much. Every time you till or dig, you destroy worm tunnels and expose their habitat. Worms prefer stable environments where organic matter decomposes gradually from the top. That's why no-dig gardening or surface composting produces incredible worm activity without a single worm purchase. And the key is layering organic materials directly on the soil. Start with a thin layer of kitchen scraps, then cover it with dry carbon-rich materials like shredded leaves, straw or cardboard in about a 1-to-3 ratio, 1 part food waste to 3 parts dry matter. The top layer keeps odors down, maintains moisture, and attracts worms upward to feed. Within weeks, you'll find your soil alive with native species doing all the composting for you. Moisture control is the difference between a worm desert and a worm paradise. Worms breathe through their skin, and if the soil dries out, they can't survive. On the other hand, waterlogged conditions drown them. The goal is to maintain steady, damp conditions similar to a wrung-out sponge. Mulch is your best ally here. I apply a 10-centimeter layer of mulch over all my garden beds, whether it's grass clippings, leaves, or old compost. It locks in humidity, regulates soil temperature, and creates the perfect microclimate for worms to thrive right under the surface. If your climate is hot or dry, you can also create mini worm zones by burying organic waste pockets throughout your garden. Simply dig a hole about 20 centimeters deep, fill it with a mix of 1 part kitchen scraps to 2 parts shredded paper or dried leaves and cover it with soil. These act as worm magnets, drawing them in to feed and reproduce. In just a few months, the surrounding soil becomes dark, soft, and rich with worm castings. Natural worm attractants can multiply populations faster than any store-bought batch. There are natural materials that worms find, well, absolutely irresistible, and you can use them quite strategically. Used coffee grounds are honestly one of the best options. They're slightly acidic, provide fine organic matter, and encourage microbial growth, the worm's first source of food. When mixed at a ratio of 1 cup per square meter of bed and topped with mulch, they'll bring worms from surrounding soil within days. Another powerful attractant is decomposed manure. Horse or cow manure, once composted for at least a few weeks to reduce heat, provides an excellent environment. Spread it thinly, about 2 to 3 centimeters thick, over your beds, then cover with straw. Within a month, you'll have a worm population dense enough to rival any purchased vermiculture bin. If you have access to rotten fruits or vegetable peels, bury them shallowly in different corners of the bed every 2 weeks. This constant rotation of food sources keeps the worms distributed evenly and ensures that none of the material rots anaerobically. Building a balanced worm ecosystem is better than importing one. When you buy worms from a supplier, you're introducing a foreign population that may not suit your climate or soil type. Native worms, on the other hand, are perfectly adapted to your conditions. They know your seasonal cycles, your rainfall patterns, and the natural microbial life of your soil. Once you create the right habitat, they breed exponentially. In 1 square meter of healthy soil, a single worm pair can produce hundreds of offspring in a year if organic matter is consistently available. This is why I stopped importing worms altogether. Instead, I started feeding my soil strategically and protecting it. Within 6 months, the worm population multiplied naturally, and the texture of my soil changed. It went from compact and crumbly to soft, sponge-like, and full of life. The plants responded with deeper roots, better moisture retention, and fewer pest issues. Worm farming in-ground works better than any bin system. If you've been using worm bins or towers, you've probably noticed how quickly conditions shift. Sometimes it's too wet, sometimes too dry, or even too hot. Nature doesn't work that way. When worms live directly in the soil, they can move up or down depending on temperature and moisture. That's why I now build in-ground compost stations instead of traditional bins. Here's how it works. Select a spot in your garden bed and dig a hole about 40 centimeters deep and 30 centimeters wide. Fill the bottom with a mix of food scraps and shredded leaves in equal parts, then add a layer of soil on top. Every week, just add more organic matter and cover it again. The worms will come, feed, and turn that zone into a rich nutrient hub. You can repeat this setup every few meters across your garden to create multiple natural worm colonies that feed the entire ecosystem continuously. Healthy soil grows worms, and worms grow healthy soil. Once you stop focusing on buying worms and start focusing on feeding your soil, the whole system balances itself. The microbial activity attracts worms, the worms aerate and enrich the soil, and the plants respond with stronger growth. You'll never need to spend money on vermicompost again because your entire garden becomes one giant living compost system. I stopped buying worms when I discovered how simple it was to let nature do the work. Now, my soil stays alive all year round, full of native worms doing their job tirelessly. You can do this too. Just feed your soil, keep it covered, and give it time. The results will speak for themselves. If this guide gave you valuable insight, make sure to subscribe to Soil Doctor and share it with other gardeners who care about building natural, living soils. Let's keep growing smarter, not harder, and let the worms come to you.